All right, this video is meant to be a Bible study. So get your Bible out. I'm here to tell you that Matthew chapter 24, verse 29 and 30 are the same event as Revelation chapter 6, verse 12 through 7, verse 1. Now, if we were to compare these side by side, they basically say almost the same thing, but having both of them together gives you an even better revelation. Okay, so I'm going to read Matthew, the words of Jesus, Matthew 29. It says, "Immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, the stars will fall from the sky, the heavenly bodies will be shaken. At that time," "the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and all the nations will mourn." Now we're going to Revelation chapter 6, verse 12. Look at the similarities. "I watched as he opened the sixth seal, and there was a great earthquake." Now here's what's similar. "The sun was turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair. The whole moon turned red. The stars in the sky fell to earth as late figs from a fig tree when shaken by a strong wind. The sky receded like a scroll rolling up, and every mountain and island was removed from its place. Then the kings of the earth, the princes, the generals, the rich, the mighty, and every slave and free man hid among the rocks and in the dens of the rocks," as other versions say. And they basically were calling out to God and mourning. So I'm going to read it again, but this time I'm going to take both Matthew 24, verse 29 and 30, and I'm going to mix them together. All right, so here we go. Ready? So here I go, mixing Matthew 24, verse 29 through 30, and Revelation chapter 6, verse 12 through 7, verse 21. So here's what's going to happen. "After the distress of those days," I'll put this in front of you so you can see me switching. "After the distress of those days, I watched as he opened the sixth seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair. The sun will be darkened. The moon turned blood red. The moon will not give its light. The stars in the sky fell to earth as late figs drop from a fig tree when shaken by a strong wind. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. The sky receded like a scroll rolling up. At that time, the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky. Every mountain and island was moved from its place. And the kings of the earth, the princes, the rich, the mighty, the generals, every slave and free man hid in caves." It says everybody. And look what it says. "All the nations of the earth will mourn." "After this I saw, standing at the four corners of the earth, holding back the four winds of the earth to prevent any wind from blowing on the land or on the sea or any tree." So if we understand this right, there's going to be an earthquake. The sky is going to be turned to darkness. The moon will not give its light and be turned to red. The stars will fall from the sky. The sky will be rolled up like a scroll. It will be seen the sign of the Son of Man in the sky. And all the nations will mourn while they're hiding in the dens of the rocks, calling out to God. And at the end of it, there's a time of no wind. Folks, that is the same event. Revelation chapter 6, the sixth seal. is the same event as described in Matthew chapter 24, verse 29 and 30. After the sixth seal, we see the 144,000 are sealed with the seal of God. So some people could say, oh, well, and in Matthew 24, verse 30 and 31, it says that the angels will go out and gather his elect. So after this World War III event, the rapture is going to happen. But there's a few details missing, because in Revelation chapter 14, now this is the Lord connected this to me, and he told me that when Babylon the Great falls, it's the hour of God's judgment. That's the sixth seal, and it's World War III, thermonuclear war. So between the time that the sign of the Son of Man is seen in the sky and the sky being rolled up like a scroll, and the actual rapture, in Revelation chapter 14, the mark of the beast comes out. So what's in the timeline after World War III? Right after World War III, sometime after World War III, the mark of the beast comes out. Then there's a number to be put to death for their faith. Once that number is complete, then the harvest of the earth will happen. That's the rapture. So let's go to Revelation chapter 14 real quick. And get your Bible out, because here's how it's going to happen. Revelation 14:8 starts with fallen is Babylon the Great. That's World War III. That's the sixth seal. That's the sky rolled up like a scroll. That's the sign in the sky of the coming of the Son of Man. That's also the cry that rings out at midnight that wakes up all the wise and foolish virgins. Then after that, if anyone worships the beast and his image and receives his mark on a forehead or on his hand, he too will drink the wine of God's fury, which has been poured full strength in the cup of his wrath. So let's go to Matthew 24 real quick, so that I can really make this clear. Because you need to understand this is how it's going to happen, and whether you like it or not, it's going to happen exactly the way I'm telling you right now. That's right. That's right. Matthew 24:29. The sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, the stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. At that time, the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and the nations of the earth will mourn. Then, if anyone worships the beast and his image and receives his mark on his forehead or hand, he too will drink the wine of God's fury, which has been poured full strength in the cup of his wrath. He will be tormented with burning sulfur in the presence of the holy angels and of the Lamb. The smoke of their torment rises forever. There is no rest day or night for those who worship the beast and his image. For anyone who receives his mark of his name. This calls for patient endurance on the part of the saints who obey God's commandments and remain faithful to Jesus. Then I heard a voice from heaven say, "Write, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on." Or in other versions it says, "Blessed are those who die in the Lord from henceforth." Then I looked, and before me was a white cloud. Seated on the cloud was one like the Son of Man, with a crown of gold on his head and a sharp sickle in his hand. Another angel came out of the temple and called in a loud voice to him who was sitting on the cloud, "Take your sickle and reap." Now back to Matthew chapter 24. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. So in Matthew 24, verse 30, where it says, basically you got to cut verse 30 in half, where it says the earth will mourn. After it says all the nations of the earth will mourn, then the mark of the beast comes out, right around there. So before he sends out his angels to gather his elect, before he does that, Revelation chapter 14 verse 9 happens, because Revelation 14 verse 9 happens in Revelation chapter 14 verse 9. Then after that, in Revelation chapter 14 verse 14, is when the angels go out and gather up the elect. So there's a sequence of events. I'm just trying to prove to you that after World War III, the mark of the beast comes out. Then there's a great falling away, a great persecution, those who are to be put to death for their faith. Then God will say, blessed are those who die in the Lord from henceforth. Then the number will be completed, those who are to be put to death for their faith. Then the rapture will happen. And the rapture will only happen after the inhabitants of the earth have shed the blood of God's saints and prophets. And it will be a secret rapture. People say, I don't believe in the secret rapture. It's going to be a secret rapture. There's going to be so few Christians left, and those who are raptured are going to be hiding in the hills and in the mountains and in prison camps and in jail cells. This whole idea from the movie Left Behind that there's going to be suddenly a bunch of Christians who disappear all over the face of the earth. You tell me if the rapture were to happen right now in Afghanistan, if anybody would even know. There's so few Christians left in, how about Saudi Arabia? There's no Christians there anymore. They wouldn't even know. They're just life as usual. I'm just saying, and it's going to be that way here in the United States. They're going to persecute and put to death so many Christians that so few Christians will be around when the rapture finally does happen. It won't even make the news.